has arrived. And it wasn't so much peacefully delivered by Stork as it was birthed from the churning guts of the cement mixer of everything that I did in 2023. Hopes, dreams, aspirations, follies, goals that I set myself that were never going to be achievable but I didn't know it at the time, existential dread, and just like birth it was extremely painful, real messy, but also ultimately kind of beautiful. Not sure how I got to this place. This metaphor appears to have run away with me. Welcome to my 2024 bingo board. It is Leanne and welcome back to another video. Arguably the video that you guys have all been waiting for. The amount of messages that I have had the last couple of weeks which are essentially just when will this video happen are astronomical. I love all of you and your rampant enthusiasm for me causing myself pain. But this time around it wasn't just because you wanted me to be in pain, it was also because you wanted you guys to be in pain. Because as promised, not only is this the introduction to my 2024 bingo board where I take you through all of the categories, but this is also the video in which I give you a version of the board that you can use for your own bingo board goals. So stick around to the end of this video if you would also like to get your hands on a copy of my 2024 bingo board from hell and the guidebook that I have written on how to best utilise it. But before we get started, I would first like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Serious Readers. Because, pardon the pun, I am a serious fan. Now, I know my viewership real well. I feel like I've got a good handle on what makes you guys tick. And so chances are, if you are here watching this video, then you are not only a reader, but you are probably also creative in some other area of your life. Maybe that's building really intricate Lego models at 2 AM. Maybe it's the time of year where you're setting up your 2023 reading journal, or you're scrapbooking everything that happened throughout your year. Maybe you crochet wonders like this. I am aware that this cardigan does look like I'm wearing the pelts of several skinned muppets, but I am okay with that. But the reason that I ask this is because not only does Serious Readers have you covered for reading in the daytime, reading in the dark part of the UK daytime, reading in the evening part of the UK daytime. Not only does Serious Readers have your eyeballs covered for all of that wonderful range of activity, but it also has you covered for everything else that you do. Because Serious Readers are the only people out there right now using daylight wavelength technology. Their lamps so closely mirror natural daylight, not bright sunlight, but normal average daylight, that your eyeballs cannot tell the difference between reading at 2 AM and reading in that half an hour in the UK right now where you can actually get real light. And because of this, they are the only lamp on the market right now which is currently guaranteed to protect the longevity of your eyeballs. And when I say that I use my Serious Readers lamp for everything, I am not exaggerating. I use it for crochet, Harry uses it for paint by numbers and jigsaws. I use it to write my Yule Tidings cards with. Believe it or not, I used it to help find a leak under my sinking bath last week. Because not only does it help you to see better because it's brighter, but it also helps your eyes to focus on the details. So if you would like to get your hands on your very own Serious Readers light in time to pop it under the Christmas tree for yourself or for your loved ones who also read and do crafty things and have eyeballs, then you can use my code SR444 to get the best deal that Serious Readers currently offer, which is 100 whole human pounds off of one of their Serious lights. Oh, and free delivery. 100 whole human pounds and free delivery. I got a little bit excited there. Trust me, their high definition lights are going to change your life just as much as my bingo board has changed mine. And now that we've talked about the fun stuff, I suppose we should probably get back to that. Oakley dokley. She can push it off no longer, even if she does want to hide in her Muppet cardigan. It is time for the bingo board from hell for 2024. Here's she is in all of her evil glory. She has had a significant glow up from 2023 because let's face it guys, as much as 2023's board is cute, we love her. I very much threw her together on impulse when I started this challenge in March. Can I actually believe that I've been doing this since March? No. But she was the very definition of utilitarian, and I kind of figured her out as I went along. And don't worry, in January there will be a video coming your way wherein I wrap up 2023's board for good and I give you all of my bingos and stats. And I wish I could do it now before this new board launches, but I can't give you my 2023 stats when 2023 hasn't finished. It's December and your girl is still slogging through her TBR. So we just gonna have to wait for that one. And in the meantime, draw our attention to this beauty. I had a lot of fun cooking her up and she kind of does represent exactly how I feel about this board. Fire and impending doom. Existential dread coupled with a fun colour scheme, which is kind of who I am as a person. Like, that's kind of the essence of me. So what we're going to do here today is go through each of the squares on my bingo board and tell you how I am going to be challenging myself and my reading in 2024. I'm going to tell you how every one of the squares on this bingo board work, how you can use them for yourself, and also how I'm going to motivate myself next year, what little prizes and nice things I'm going to be giving myself. And again, I feel the need to just give you the little disclaimer here once again that I'm only slogging my way through this because A, it's good for me. It's good for me and for all of us to challenge our assumptions about our own reading and like the limitations that we impose on ourselves and the bad habits that we create. And B, it is actually fun. Trust me, she an ADHD baby. She's not doing anything unless it's fun, I promise. But that doesn't mean it's not hard or that it's fun all of the time, because nothing in life is fun all of the time. Anyway, that little pep talk aside, let's get into it. So, starting off traditionally as we do in the top corner of this board, the first square that I have for 2024 is 10 audiobooks. Now there are two things to note about this square. First of all, it is the first of my repeat squares. A few of the squares on this bingo board are indeed duplicates of my 2023 bingo board because they are still priorities for me. But the second thing that you might notice is that the number is different from last year's board because every square on last year's board, which was a definitive number of things, was 12. And this time around everything is instead 10. And the reason for that is twofold. First of all, 10 is easier for me to maths. But the second thing is that I noticed last year that when all of these squares on my board said 12, my brain automatically said, okay, that means that you only need to do one of those every month. And so I was noticing that as I was making my TBRs, I was trying to make all of these monthly goals. And that's just not practical because there are some months where I cannot, with all of the best will in the world, hit every one of the squares on my bingo board. And I was finding that I was feeling at the end of a month, if I hadn't done that, like I was failing. And that's not the point of the board. The point of the board is motivation, not to hit myself over the head with it. Well, for the most part, there's some hitting myself over the head with it. So changing the numbers to 10 on my board this time around is a really easy fix and a way to get over that mental hurdle. It's all about tricking the old brain box into thinking that it's doing things for itself when actually it's doing things for you. You are in charge of it. It is not in charge of you. All just keep telling ourselves that until it's eventually true. So in 2024, I am going to strive to listen to 10 audiobooks. And I know for a fact that the way I am listening to audiobooks right now at the end of 2023 means I'm probably going to complete this square off more than once next year. Which, hi, hello, if you're new here, if you're new to bingo board hell, is a thing that we also get points for. So keep that in mind if you take the blank version of my board at the end of this video and you use it for yourself. When you are setting goals, make sure that some of them are smaller and more achievable goals. Not only will it give you a sense of accomplishment because you will have finished it, but also depending on your point system, it'll give you something fun. I feel like I need to get that tattooed on a vital part of my body that everybody sees. Maybe a chest piece, maybe like reading should be fun. That being said, and talking about manageable and achievable goals, the next square on this bingo board is the one that you've all been waiting for. In 2023, I had a square on my bingo board that was read 80% of my 2023 purchases. So every book that I had physically entered my home in 2023 went on a spreadsheet, and I catalogued off whenever I read it or whenever I unhauled it, and I worked out at the end of every month what percentage of 2023's purchases I had got through. Now, because of my point system in 2023, I got to knock 5% off of that, which meant that it became read 75% of your 2023 purchases. But guys, gals, non-binary, spicy pals, and everything else on the rainbow, there is absolutely no way, no chuffing way that I was ever going to hit 80%, which was a fact that I did not know when I put together 2023's board. I had absolutely no idea that my reading to buying ratio was so incredibly different, because that reading and buying ratio was a thing that I had already addressed so many times over the years that I thought I had it under my belt. I thought I had it down. I thought 80%, that's maybe challenging myself a little bit, you know, it's going to be a little bit difficult, but it's not going to be hard. And my guys, it was hard. Not only hard, but nigh on impossible. And so while 2023 taught me a lot about my purchasing habits, and they have changed so much over the course of 2023 and will hopefully stay in a modified version in 2024, I also, when putting together my 2024 board, had to be much more reasonable. Reasonable with an attainable goal. So for 2024, I am going to attempt to read 60% of my 2024 purchases, with the caveat being that this year I'm not going to knock any percents of that at all. I have changed my points and prizes system in 2023, more on that after we finish going through these squares. But long story short, no matter how many times I complete off a square, this one is not going to be changing. With my numbers currently sitting where they are at 2023, I am on track to finish off 50% of my 2023 purchases. So this one is still a reach, but it's a much more reasonable, hopeful goal. One that hopefully won't keep me up at night. Especially because the next square up on this board is 10 rereads. Rereads by definition are not going to include many of my 2024 books, even if in 2024 I decide at the start of the year that I've loved a book enough that I'm going to reread it again at the end of the year, which I definitely did do this year and last year. I don't know how many times I have made a recommendations video for you guys, which is like older, overlooked books that I don't talk about very often, or like recommendations on a theme where I haven't got to the end of that video and gone, oh, this book is really due for a reread. Because something that I've discovered in 2023 is that I overwhelmingly prioritize new books, or at least books that in my brain have been in my house for like a year and a half. That's kind of the cut-off. Anything after a year and a half, I don't prioritize it ever, especially not if it is a favourite that I talk about all the time. And it's kind of a toxic behaviour, because I used to, before BookTube, be a serial rereader. There are some books on my shelf that I have read again and again and again and again, and I have just kind of given that up for the new shiny and the hype train, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm going to be rereading in 2024, even though this one actually scares the pants off me more than any other square on this board. But next up, and in related news, popping down to the next row, the next one that I have is read 10 TBR veterans, because as I just said, if it's been in my house for over like a year and a half, it just kind of goes to a hazy, murky place where I don't think about it as like an urgent thing that I want to pick up anymore. And so sometimes it becomes an intimidating book or a rainy day book, one that I'm keeping for a perfect event. Sometimes the urge to read it just goes away. And while I am very pro unhaul, I'm very pro if it no longer serves you, get it out of your space. I also recognise that there may have been some books that I've unhauled in the last 2 years which might have been perfect books for me, but where the impulse to read them had worn off because they've been here for such a long time. So I am going to commit to reading 10 TBR veterans in 2024. And when I say that telling you guys that aloud gives me squeaky bumhole, I am not underestimating. And speaking of the things that I have discovered in 2023 are an issue for me, we know for a fact, for an absolute statement of hard fact that anytime I've ever allowed myself to have a month which is just entirely mood reading, which is a month where I just pick up books that I feel like picking up, or I allow myself to buy new books with the prospect of, oh, I'll read these immediately, it just doesn't go well for me. It just doesn't happen. Either I pick up one book and I get stuck in it and I read it really, really slowly and I end up slumpy, or I end up picking up tons and tons and tons of books and multiple reading them, and in some cases finishing them bang, 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 bang at the end of the month, but in other cases very much not doing that and ending up with tons of paused books, or books that I haven't given a fair shot, or books that I have given a fair shot and I should DNF but I can't see the wood for the trees. Paper pun not intended. And so I end up finishing them even though they're just going to be like it was fine. Structured TBRs work for me so much better, specifically structured TBRs where everything has its own little deadline. Either it's for my bingo board, or it's for a book club, or it's for a read along, and everything needs to be finished because everything has got a date of expiration. That works so much better for me in my little ADHD brain. That being said, I do have a little ADHD brain, and sometimes it just wants shiny things. Sometimes it just wants the ability to go, I want that book. And so I recognised that for my 2024 board, I was going to have to build a couple of squares in that would allow me to have a tiny bit of flexibility, but still keep me on some kind of track. And so the next square, the middle square of my bingo board, which traditionally on bingo board challenges is like a free square or an easier square or a gentler square, is random emoji read. Either I'm going to generate them, I'm going to ask my patrons for them, lovely spouse Harry is going to choose them for me. It's just going to be a totally random emoji. So my brain's going to get a chance to go ping, 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 and gives it the illusion of mood reading and the illusion of extra choice, which means that this is also a square wherein the points will just accumulate. I only get points if I do it, but I can do it as many times as I like. If you decide at the end of this video that you want to use my exact board and my prompts, I do have a version of this board that doesn't have any numbers on it, so you can set your own numbers and percentages for these prompts if you want to keep them. And so if you want to put a number on this for yourself, if you want it to be 1 a month or like 10 in a year or whatever, you can absolutely do that. But for me, this is just going to be a fun square. The next square along is read 10 series tracker books. Again, if you're new here, my series tracker is a spreadsheet that I created on my new reading spreadsheet for 2023, which is a thing that you're definitely getting a video on very, very soon. Look out for all of the stats coming at you. The purpose of which was to track how many series I am currently reading and make decisions on them. Decide if I was going to DNF them. Decide if I was going to complete them. Decide if I had read enough of them that I considered it to be complete and I could unhaul all of the books after that. And on my 2023 bingo board, I have 2 squares that talk about my series tracker. I have one which asks me to finish 3 series for the year, and another which asks me to just read the series tracker books with no, goal in mind for I must finish the series when I do that. But I had absolutely no idea how difficult this was going to be in 2023. Some of them have been easy wins, some of them are just 1 or 2 books that are hanging around at the end, but others are really long ongoing series that I am still working my way through. So this time around for 2024, I have decided that instead of my emphasis being on finishing series, I am instead just going to try and read books from my series tracker. Now, before you say it, yes, potentially this does give my brain the loophole to just read further books in a series and still never finish them. I have got so much better at keeping an eye on that spreadsheet in 2023. I have narrowed down my series field so incredibly much, and so I actually think that there's a good chance that this square in and of itself will be enough. This bingo board has changed the way that my brain works about the way that I read. I've read more books this year than ever before, and I really believe that this square will be enough in and of itself to help get me to the end of the series that I love. Now, next up, popping down to that bottom row, we have read 10 non-fiction books. This is another repeat square for my 2023 board with obviously the modified total, but this time the total is larger because for some reason I had looked back in my brain, not in any actual document that existed or on my Goodreads or whatever. I looked back in my brain at my previous reading year and been like, oh, you didn't read many non-fiction books this year, so let's motivate yourself to do more of that next year. And then so far for 2023, this has been my most most completed off square. I've read more books in this square than I have in any other square on my 2023 bingo board. And just as like a general high level overview, it's the only section in my entire library that has consistently outgrown its bookcase this year, no matter how much I have unhauled. And considering I have unhauled 1/3 of my entire library this year, that's saying a lot. And so I don't think that it's going to be difficult at all to read 10 non-fiction books in 2024. I think there's a chance that this is also going to be a square that I complete off more than once. Next up for the spicy middle row of this bingo board, we have got another brand new square, and this one for me is going to be BFF controls. Now don't worry, if you're planning on using my bingo board for yourself next year, I have various different versions of this square that you can use and modify for yourself. One of them just says blank controls my TBR, so you can fill that in with anything you like Instagram, TikTok, your best friend, your mum, a random number generator, anything you want you can fill in there. But I've also got a version of it that says internet controls, so you can do something different every month if you want, and a version that says Leanne controls my TBR. So if you don't have a bookish friend, you can look through any of my tops and bottoms videos or any of my recommendations and favourites videos, and you can find recommendations from me that you can use for this square. I, however, have a Kirsty. And when Kirsty was here in my house this year, she left me a handwritten list of books that she wanted me to read. Books that she had seen on my shelves or on my Kindle and that she was disgusted that I had not got to. And I am going to use that list from Kirsty every month, and anything else that she happens to add to it, because she does that quite a lot. Like, I know for a fact that she's put some books on this list that she wants me to read for her own nefarious purposes, but having a quite extensive list for me to pick from allows my brain the illusion of choice and the illusion of mood reading every month, so that will work nicely for me, I think. And then finally, I have left arguably the worst for me to last, because the last square on this bingo board is read 10 rainy day books, which I abjectly do not want to do. This is the only square on this entire board that I don't want it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be forced to do it. Brain no want to play. But that is exactly why it needs to exist, and that's exactly why I needed to force myself to do it. Because one of the massive things that I have identified in 2023 with my bingo board this year is that I keep so many books that I am so highly anticipating for rainy day books. So the definition for me of a rainy day book is a book that I am avoiding for whatever reason. It might be because since I bought it there's been a lot of hype and I'm really intimidated to pick it up. It might be because I'm like, oh, I need that to be the perfect cozy fall afternoon where I get to just curl up with a blanket and a warm beverage and read that book and it's just going to be a vibe. It might be because it's the conclusion of a series that I'm absolutely dreading, that I don't want to lose these characters, I don't want to leave them. So leaving myself that last book has the perpetual option in my head that they exist and that I can just go back to them whenever I want and get new stuff. But for whatever reason, rainy day books are books that I am not picking up that I really, really want to. And that's a huge problem, because if I am going to pre-order a book and buy it on the principle that I am so excited for it and then not read it, I might as well have just not bothered buying that book at that time. I might as well have just left it in the bookstore and picked it up when I eventually decided, yeah, I want to read that. But my brain can't handle doing that either, because what if I don't get the special edition limited hardback of blah 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 and I end up really loving it? And by the way, if you, like me, are trying to work out what the answer to that is, it's just nothing happens. And so by forcing myself to read these rainy day books, I am hopefully going to be continuing to force myself to break the illusion that I need to pre-order everything that I'm anticipating, or I will discover that I'm actually reading everything that I'm anticipating as it's coming through the door, so it doesn't become a rainy day book and it doesn't end up in this square of doom. One of those two things will hopefully happen. So those are all of the squares on my bingo board for 2024. Let's talk about my point system this time around. So when I came up with my bingo board for 2023, I didn't have any point system in mind. And I ended up just kind of improvising one from your guys' suggestions and what my gut decided as I went through 2023. And that was both a good and a bad thing, because the point of the bingo board is just to get me to read my books. So in that way, I was winning if I was using the bingo board and I was actually reading my books. But I hadn't actually complexly thought what happens when you get a bingo. And so this time around, I am much more prepared. So my system this time around is going to work on points, completed squares, and completed bingos. Every time I get 10 points in any of these boxes, including the emoji box or my BFF controls box, I am going to get to do something fun from a pre-decided list of fun activities, which are going to be things that I love to go do. Things like going out to eat, spending an entire day video gaming, painting pottery. And of course I also have the ability to add things to that list throughout the year or remove things that aren't fun for me anymore. Like if one of them is binged X amount of episodes of this TV show and I'm bored with that TV show and never want to look at it again, then it can come off the list. But either way, I know that that list exists, and it exists for the purposes of dopamine. It exists for the purposes of giving me a little kick and being like, look, you did a good thing. So if you're going to use this same point system, make sure that what you do for that list are things that genuinely bring you joy. Make them easily achievable fun things, some of which have nothing to do with reading. Because while it might be our favoritist hobby in the entire world, your brain does also need time to do other things. So that's what happens when I complete off a square. I will mark it as completed and I'll go back down to 0. And then when I get a bingo, meaning that I have completed 3 squares in a row, and also for the purposes of this bingo board, you can go this way or diagonally. I don't care, you do you. A row is a row, a bingo is a bingo. Every time I get a bingo, I will be allowed to buy 3 books that do not add to my read 60% total in 2024. Now, how, you may ask, do I get a bingo with the 2 squares on my board that don't have any numbers associated with them? I am going to count those as 10-point squares as well, so I'm going to need 10 points in each of these to say that it's like completed off for a bingo. But I am still going to leave these as completely targetless squares, because just like my bingo board for 2023, there are going to be places where I don't get a bingo. There are going to be rows where I can't get a bingo. And there should be rows on your bingo board where you can't get a bingo, because otherwise it's too easy. Which does bring me to the final part of this video, which is how you can use the board for yourself. So, down below in my description box, you will find a link to a guidebook that I have written for this bingo board. That guidebook both takes you through all of the squares that are on my version of the board and gives you ideas and definitions for them, and a little bit of a helping hand on ways to complete off your squares quicker, things like doubling up books, or using certain techniques or readathons to help hit more of the squares. But it also has an entire section on how to create your own bingo board, on the things that I have learned about my bingo board, things that I have learned about setting achievable goals, the things that I have learned about burning out because you're not setting yourself achievable goals, and the things that I have learned about looking at your reading and asking yourself questions about it without being mean to yourself. Because this board is abjectly not meant to be there for you to hit yourself over the head with. It's to help you achieve your goals. Also down below is a Google Drive folder wherein you will find various versions of this board. There is my version with all of my totals and all of the original text on it if you also maybe have a series tracker or a BFF or whatever. There are a couple of versions of my board which have blank spaces for you to write in your own totals and percentages, and which have slightly different wording, for example series books instead of series tracker books. And like I said, there is a completely blank version of this board down below that you can customize to suit yourself. For those of you who I know are going to ask me where to do that, I would use Canva. It is an entirely free app. You can use it to overlay text or images onto this bingo board before you print it out for your planners or to stick on your wall, or you can download it and save it digitally from Canva so that you can add it to social media, to Instagram. And I have also included a set of icons as transparent PNG files which you can use to mark off your bingo board to say you've completed a square once and set your numbers back to 0, or which you can use to visually represent getting a bingo, like the comets down there. You could put a comet across each of the squares in here. All of those are also down below in the description box. So that's it guys, that is everything for my 2024 bingo board introduction. I hope that you guys love the look of the new board and that you're excited for the challenges on it. Please give me your feedback down below. I would love to hear what's your favourite square on it. And of course, if you are planning on using my bingo board for yourself, either one of my versions or a blank version, please tell me about that down below as well. And if you have got this far through the video, then please leave me your favourite ball emoji down below. And don't forget, if you would like to get 100 human pounds off of a high definition reading light from serious readers and free delivery in time for that festive season, then you can use my code here on screen and my link down below in the description box to do that. It is the best deal that serious readers currently offers. And I will speak to you guys soon.